Just so you know, this show is about scary stuff. So don't say I didn't warn you guys. And remember, don't be scared.
Bonus episode, Tormented. By the time May 28, 2014 rolled around, 14-year-old Noel Estevez of the Bronx, New York had evidently had enough. Enough of being chased, enough of being teased and taunted about his stutter and about his mother with a criminal record. For the past 3 months, former friend 14-year-old Timothy Crump and his crew had been harassing and bullying Noel whenever they got the chance. They would throw rocks at his apartment windows and repeatedly urinated on his family's front door, constantly chased and taunted, then pushed down a staircase and pummeled with homophobic slurs. Noel's family, friends, and neighbors reported that Tim and his crew threatened him with taunts of "you're dead" and "I'm going to kill you." One neighbor said Noel asked for an escort to the neighborhood store almost daily. He was afraid to leave his house alone. The crazy part is, the boys used to be friends, until a disagreement over a cell phone changed everything. They remained friends on Facebook all the way until the end. Noel had spent the majority of the past year alone. His mother was frequently incarcerated and his father was rarely home. He had an ice cream street cart and worked very long hours. In May of 2013, Noel's older brother died in his sleep. Conflicting reports left me uncertain as to whether or not the overdose was accidental. Depressed and feeling abandoned, Noel found himself in the company of less than desirable peers. 14-year-old Timothy Crump had been suspended for the entire spring semester of 2014 from IS 117, Joseph H. Wade Middle School in the Bronx, also known as Wade Academies. He had punched a classmate in the face the previous December, knocking out his teeth. One teacher at IS 117 called Timothy a predator, a monster, a very, very troubled boy. Noel and Tim remained friends. Then, sometime in March of 2014, Tim and Noel stole an iPhone. Tim gave it to Noel, telling him to hold on to it. But when he went to get it back, he found out that Noel's mother had smashed it to pieces and tossed it down their building's garbage chute. Often in trouble with the law, Noel said his mother had been suspicious that the police could track her location using the phone's GPS. Tim gave Noel an ultimatum: cough up the phone or pay him for it. Unable to do either, the campaign of harassment began. By the time May 28, 2014 rolled around, Noel couldn't handle any more sadness. His father found him, seemingly just in time. Noel had tried to take his own life, just a year after his brother Justin's fatal overdose. It seems the signs were there. Beginning in April, for instance, Noel began a period of prolonged truancy from IS 117. Then, on April 29th, the school began to look further. His continuous absence prompted a school staff member to visit his home. She reported that Noel answered the door in his underwear, saying that he didn't go to school because he had a stomachache. He said his mother wasn't home. The school staff member returned to IS 117 and entered notes from the meeting into the Automate the Schools system, or ATS. The following day, April 30th, an individual identifying herself as Noel's aunt called the school, speaking to the same staff member who had made the home visit. The aunt said that Noel had told his mother that he was being harassed by some students. Neither interaction between the school staff member and Noel and his family members led them to naming Timothy Crump as the bully. The aunt also told the staff member that Noel's mother had gone to the police department to file a report. This information was entered into the ATS system as well, with all staff members of IS-117 having access to it. 2 guidance counselors also had contact with this case. One heard about Noel's general complaint of bullying but didn't update the ATS system or let Principal Delise Jones know there was an issue. There hadn't been a specific incident, threat, or finger pointed, so it seemed there weren't many details to report. The other counselors stated during the later inquiry that a child protective specialist with the Administration of Children's Services had been in contact, the purpose being to let the school know that Noel's mother reported that an older kid, perhaps named Dimitri, had been bullying him. This social worker had been investigating Noel's continued truancy along with the possibility of switching him to home instruction. When she approached the second guidance counselor about homeschooling, she was told the request would likely be denied. Noel was physically able to go to school, he just didn't. The faint whispers of bullying weren't remotely enough to warrant the move or any action on the school's part for that matter. Not only that, but the school year was all but over that late in the spring. The social worker's only recourse seemed to be to try and get a housing transfer for Noel and his mother that would result in a school transfer as well. Reports of a request for a safety transfer were made by the media, however, no official request was ever made. A safety transfer would have required a police report, and although Noel's aunt had reported to the school staff member that his mother was obtaining a police report, she found herself unsuccessful. The police would not write up a report on vague accusations, and not only that, but Noel had not been physically injured. Timothy Crump wasn't mentioned down at the 46th precinct either. As the school year wound down, Timothy Crump and his crew continued their crusade of torment against Noel. His mother was adamant that he was afraid for his life, telling her, "Mommy, I don't want to," when it was time to go to school. She recalled him coming home black and blue and that he would cry. On May 4th, he posted on Facebook saying, "I miss my big brother. Rip, bro. You're gone from the world, but not from our hearts." Then came May 28th, just over a year after his brother Justin's unexpected death, when Noel tried to take his own life. His father found him in his bedroom closet. Admitted to a Bronx care hospital for nearly 2 weeks, Noel was reportedly diagnosed with bipolar disorder during evaluation. He was released from psychiatric treatment on June 11th, and that same day, his mother was arrested in a drug bust, accused of attempting to sell narcotics to an undercover officer. So, before he was set to return to school, his father was the parent who stopped by IS-117 on Monday, June 16th. The school's staff member he spoke with recalled that Noel's father did not mention Timothy Crump or bullying. He allegedly came by to let the school know that his son had been released and would be in school every day for the remainder of the year. The next day, Noel returned to school, bringing a wrench from home for protection. After enduring even more harassment by Tim and his crew, Noel returned to school Wednesday, June 18th, more intent than ever on protecting himself. He added a 6-inch kitchen knife to his personal arsenal. It's an irrefutable fact that Timothy Crump and his crew were outside IS-117, waiting for Noel to make his inevitable break for home. And when Noel exited the school building onto the sidewalk, he was immediately attacked, just after 3 p.m., on his second day back to school, following a nearly successful suicide attempt. Witnesses saw the altercation, punches being thrown, a knee to Noel's face, a knife being pulled while onlookers screamed in horror and disbelief. A crumpled, bleeding Timothy was taken to Bronx Lebanon Hospital, where he died soon after. The attack was unprovoked, and Noel's mother called it a kill or be killed situation. Mayor Bill de Blasio issued a public statement referring to Timothy's murder as a painful moment for all of us, and then he directed First Deputy Mayor Anthony Shorris to coordinate all of the relevant agencies to assist in the upcoming investigation. Their work will, he said, by necessity, take a hard look at how we as a city address mental health and safety in our schools. There was little question as to what had happened, and Noel was arrested at the scene and was arraigned the next day, where defense attorney Eric Poulos portrayed him as a frightened child who was scared for his life. He was charged as an adult with second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. The prosecution read excerpts from Noel's police interview from the day before, including, "The kid kept hitting me with his fist, so I pulled a knife and stabbed him 4 or 5 times. Noel's mother remained in the infamous Rikers Island from the day he was released from the hospital until June 20th, 2 days after Timothy's murder. She showed up at Horizon Juvenile Center to try and see her son on Saturday, June 21st, telling the press outside that her son was hurt and sad. Following Timothy's murder, his next-door neighbor recalled him as a good, humble kid who lived with his mother and also had an older brother like Noel. A former coach refuted the talk that Timothy was a bully or a troublemaker. He said he was always a shy, sweet, helpful child around the neighborhood. But teachers still said things like Timothy was a bomb waiting to explode. Everybody is stunned, but not surprised. 2 weeks later, Noel was indicted by a grand jury on 1-count second-degree manslaughter. The second-degree murder charge was dropped. In an unprecedented move, Noel himself testified before the grand jury. By explaining what led up to the deadly altercation and reading from his police confession, Noel seemed to be able to prove self-defense to a limited extent, as his attorneys had promised would happen. His attorney had previously stated, "The day of the incident, the deceased hit my client 5 or 6 times, punched him in the nose, and he also had a weapon of some kind. It was something like a screwdriver. The deceased on numerous occasions has provoked and bullied my client, and he defended himself. It's unreasonable for him to be charged with murder. He was defending himself, and people have a right to defend themselves from bodily attack." By downgrading his charges, Noel became eligible to have his case moved from adult court to family court. He would be tried as a juvenile, not as an adult as originally intended, and was unlikely held past his 18th birthday. In 2010, a state audit determined that the leadership at the school should be reevaluated. If necessary, changes should be made, or a mentor principal could be assigned to the school in order to model the qualities of an effective instructional leader. Delise Jones was principal in 2010 and remained so in 2014 at the time of the incident. Following the stabbing of Timothy Crump, Jones was heavily lambasted for not intervening in the perceived situations surrounding Noel Estevez. Although the formal investigation and ensuing report never conclude that any of the bullying actually took place on the grounds of IS 117. Bullying as a children's wellness issue was once again thrust into the forefront of New York parents' consciousnesses. However, schools in areas of the city such as District 9, Wade Academy's district, continue to struggle overall. A large number of English language learners, as well as a high percentage of kids in transitional housing situations, make performing at expected levels difficult. Lower test